What's up? Welcome to Learn and Turn. We got our buddy Ethan McElvain here. Vanderbilt Signee, draft prospect. Should be really good. We're going to go ahead and start. Let's go, Deacon.
All right, Ethan. Thanks for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely great guy. Best friend for a while. Great guy. So, Ethan came to... Actually, you go ahead and do your own introduction.
So how I got to Nolensville and everything?
Just your life story, kind of.
All right. So, life story. Started playing baseball at a very young age of 4. Went through middle school. Didn't really know where I was going in baseball or anything. I played 3 sports. After that, I got a tryout with the Junior Olympic baseball team. Made that. Ended up winning a gold medal. Shortly after, committed to Vanderbilt. Shortly after that, actually, I ended up transferring to Nolensville, where I met these guys after my freshman year. So going into my sophomore year, we're seniors now. So looking forward to our senior season. This year I was just nominated as an All-American. Top 30 in the top 35 in the country, I think now. So it's been a pretty good summer. We've come a long way in baseball. So
absolutely. Well, good stuff, Ethan. Let's kind of go ahead and start. I mean, you kind of gave us a good foundation to go off of. So what was your travel ball like early on? What age, how old were you when you actually started playing travel ball and all that stuff?
When I first started playing travel ball, I was probably about 7, something like that. I was never the best player, but I was good enough to be on a travel team kind of thing. I was better than, playing the young rec scene, and I was good enough to play the travel scene, but I wasn't really up to everybody else's standards, and I always played up, so I was always the youngest kid on the team. So
were you competing, or were you dominating? Were you the man child that everybody talked about? This dude hit puberty in 3rd grade. Because if y'all can't tell, Ethan's a big man. How tall are you?
I'm about 6'4", 225 pounds. So
that's a large man. Here, Ethan, go ahead and pick up your microphone just to make sure we're getting it. So travel ball, were you playing with good players? How was that?
Yeah, I played with good players from a young age. Players who all were better than me up until high school, pretty much, and then I kind of took off from there. So
that's awesome, bro.
Yeah, that's great. For me, I started later than normal, but that's interesting to hear. You started at 7 in the travel ball setting.
Yeah.
Whenever you started baseball, whenever you were at 4. So that was really interesting. I just wanted to know more about your commitment process. We know you're signed now to Vanderbilt University. I've heard a lot of Tim Corbin. I've been here my whole life. I just want to know what went into your commitment process.
Really, I mean, it's a lot, as you know, especially. It takes time. It takes thinking. You have to think through your decision. That's where you're going to live the next 4 years. That's who's going to pretty much be. I mean, it's going to be who's coaching you for the next 4 years, but basically in charge of you for the next 4 years. You have to really think about if you want to play for a coach or if you don't. My brother obviously went to Vanderbilt, but he never really had much of a effect on where I was going to go. He called me one night and he said, look, it was right after I was getting recruited by Tennessee, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Duke. And he said, look, I don't care where you go. I don't care if it's UT. I don't care if it's Mississippi State. I can just tell you what's good and what's bad at Vanderbilt, and what I think you'll like at other schools from seeing friends who go there, but I can't tell you what those schools are like because I don't go there. So he was basically saying, look, it's all your decision. So going through that, it kind of made me feel a little bit better to know that it wasn't going to disappoint him if I went to a different school. But at the same time, I thought about it, and Coach Corbin, Coach Brown, Coach Baxter, now Coach Shoemaker, Coach Macias left, but Coach Shoemaker, some of the other coaches as well that are there. It's just it's a no-brainer, with how many high-profile pitchers have come out of there, especially Sonny Gray, David Price, Bueller. The list goes on. That's just a few. Carson Fulmer, that's just a few. And it's 45 minutes away. So it was a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, the Vandy boys I think they're just so much different than everybody else. I don't see a culture like that in any other school. Maybe that's just because I'm from Nashville and I've talked to a lot of guys that are like Vandy baseball alum, but it just seems completely different. Like that's like almost a status symbol saying that you went to Vandy to play baseball. It's like it's different over there.
Yeah, for sure. They have a culture that's unmatched too,
Right.
especially on the team. You know, we don't have the most fans that show up to games and stuff like that, but the fans that we do have get pretty rowdy. It's fun to be there. It's fun to play in that environment in the middle of Nashville, you know. So
Well, like even in Utah and stuff, everybody in America is a Vanderbilt fan. Like even if they're not like wearing the stuff, like every time Vanderbilt's playing, they're cheering for them. So I think that Tim Corbin and all of those guys that you committed to go play for have like set the gold standard, and I think that is just. I mean, arguably, that's obviously why it was a no-brainer for you, right?
yeah, Coach Tim Corbin has worked his butt off for years and years to get that program where it is. Without him, that program wouldn't be where it is, you know.
Yeah.
Without Coach Brown, the pitching staff wouldn't be where it is. And without Hammer, the strength and conditioning coach, the players wouldn't be where they are as far as their strength and stuff. You know, he puts them through a grind, and it's just different to play for Vanderbilt.
Speaking of like coaches and stuff, did you guys see that? Apparently, assistant coaches are now going to be put on full time and not volunteers anymore.
That's awesome.
No, I didn't see that.
I saw something about it. That's really cool.
I don't know if that's for sure,
If it's
but
not official, it should be official very soon because they still do an incredible amount for that program.
no, yeah, exactly.
I mean, all college coaches honestly do an incredible amount for their programs.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Bunch of guys setting that up. So I'm kind of gonna skip a question. You were talking about just your brother Chris, who was drafted this year to the Reds. Like, I know we're here to interview you, but we kind of just want to talk about Chris. Like, how is that like growing up with someone who was such a force, and obviously you probably see a lot of yourself in what Chris was in high school and stuff like that. So how did he like set like a roadmap for you? Did you like see his work ethic and like that's something you wanted to copy? Talk to us about like how you modeled yourself after Chris.
Yeah, you know.
Or not.
Right. You know, there's not from a young age we had some stuff in common, you know. But as I got older, I'm bigger than he is. Just my body. He's like 6 foot. I'm 6'4". I have a wider frame. It's just different. I'm left-handed. The only real, I mean, there's more things that we have in common if you dig deep.
Yeah.
But from the outside, you could see that I got my hard work from him and my mentality from him about pitching, about hitting, about playing the field. Everything, it all spawned from him just because he was the first one to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of set the stage for me and Evan, who's coming up. But it's just basically what came from him, what he helped me with the most was my work ethic, how to like work hard on the field and off the field, and just my mindset. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, obviously, as you know, you're very fortunate to have someone like that to look up to. So, and even for us, like as Nolensville high school players, Coach Hudson coached Chris at Summit, so Chris has come around us, and we've been able to see him work and stuff like that, and just being around him is a crazy experience.
Yeah, we're gonna get into later about your mentality, really the McElvain mentality now, because dude, we love that so much.
The Harper mentality, the McElvain mentality.
Yeah, we're gonna get into it. But next question. So I know you played for Team USA for a while. You won gold, didn't you?
yes, we did.
I just want you to talk about that.
Oh, talk about that. So like the good and bad, or
yeah, just that experience as a whole.
yeah. So I mean, honestly, the experience was incredible. It was amazing. It was one of the best experiences I've had in my entire life. Just coming from Tennessee, I had played travel ball out of the state and everything. I had gone to other states and everything, but I had never played against guys or played with and against guys that were from California and Texas and like freaking Maine and other places that were all shoved on one team. So it was scary at first because I had never done that, but for the 2 weeks that I was there for the cuts, it was good to get to know kids, you know. So like I wasn't open at first. You had to open up. the coaches were teaching these kids how to open up, regardless of if you made it or not. There were like 76 players that showed up the first day. When we left, there were 24, I believe. So they had to cut a lot of players, but they taught these kids how to be young adults in a sense, because they had to teach them how to communicate with people the right way, how to live, because we weren't staying with our parents during this thing. So you had to learn how to live on your own to some degree in a hotel with one other guy. Keep your room clean, because they did room checks and everything. How to, be smart. There was one kid that I remember the very first day he was there, he got sent home. He didn't get a tryout because he broke a TV with a penny. He threw a penny.
With a penny?
He threw a penny at a TV and broke the TV. Like, it's just stuff like that.
Yeah.
You separate the maturity and figure out who's going to be a guy that you can trust, because not only are you worried about, your talent on the field and your mentality, but you're also worried about maturity. Who's going to be mature when their mommy and daddy aren't around to watch them and to helicopter parent them when you're trying to get business done in a different country. Yeah. So that was cool, So after the cuts, we came back home. I got 6 weeks to train on my own, to train with Chris. He really helped me out a lot. And then after that, we reported to Houston. We had practices for a week in Houston, just like 6 to 8 hour practices. And it was just a grind because it was hot. We got sweaty. Some people got dehydrated. It's just, you have to learn how to take care of yourself in that sense too. And it was just a grind. And then after that, we went from Houston straight to Mexico, and then we got after it. And thank God we were actually able to come home with a gold medal. So
yeah, that sounds so good. It sounds like that was almost your first instance at like getting outside the house and starting to become a man more. I know like USA Baseball does a great job developing young players like that too. I've heard about the cut process and stuff, and it was just really interesting to hear about that.
Yeah. It's something different for sure. It takes a mental toll on you if you're not ready for it. So,
do you remember like what countries you all played?
Yes. So we played Venezuela. I know we played because we always have beef with Venezuela and Colombia. So we played Colombia, Venezuela, Panama. Then we played Argentina, Honduras. Obviously, Team Mexico. It doesn't matter the year. It's always deep against Team Mexico, and it's always chirping, like benches clearing close. Like, we got close to benches clearing a couple times while we were down there. Everybody hates the United States.
You told me a story about that one time.
One of them was almost my fault against Venezuela, but we played Mexico too. There was one other country, I just forget what it was. It was a smaller country, so I didn't really remember it. But those were the main teams, and the competition that we played against, like Team Mexico, Panama, and Venezuela, like these were like great competition. And then there's like the countries that are smaller, like Honduras and Argentina. They're not real great at baseball. They're there almost to just have fun. Like if you make the Olympic team for them, you're something there. So like you go and you try. Like if they win it, like they expect to go to and compete. Like they try to compete, but they're never like super big contenders. So it's fun to watch them have fun. Yeah. They go on the field every day. Like for us, for Team USA, like we went down there and the coaches were like, as soon as we got off the plane in Mexico, the coaches pulled us together for like a huddle, and they were like, take a look around, because this is like from the bus ride from the airport to the hotel is the only time you're gonna have fun. Like, you're not here to have fun. I expect you to have fun because it's the sport that you love to play, but you're not here to have fun. You're here to win a gold medal. And then if you look at the mentality of like Honduras, it was just like, let's have fun,
Yeah, I feel like that encapsulates USA versus other countries too. If you watch the World Baseball Classic, I feel like it's such a big difference in like energy and like just guys having fun like that. I feel like USA is more built on winning, and a lot of times that's good. A lot of times you want to be a winner. It's not cool to lose, but at the same time, like still incorporate some of that like fun, lighter aspect like those other countries use.
Yeah, and you always have to find the fine line in between, and sometimes that's difficult. Our first game we didn't play great. We won, but we didn't play great. we had to find that line of having fun and handling business, because that's what we were there to do, is handle business. Like, if you don't come home with gold, like you're not looked highly upon by USA Baseball. So like your whole job is to win gold, but you're trying to have fun while you're down there. So it's just like trying to find that middle part that is so successful for baseball players. That's what we did, and it ended up paying off.
Yeah, that's what on our last episode with Coach Hudson, that's what Quentin was talking about, that bell curve. Did you watch that last episode?
Yes.
When we talked about that? Yeah. So that's something that like I didn't ever think about, and when Quentin said that, I was like, dang, like really learned something from that. And then hearing you bring that up, that's crazy. And then I was also gonna say, like, I'm sure that Team USA and all the coaches and stuff have to develop you guys to make sure you're like not like misbehaving, because all the cultures of every country is different. Like, could you see that from just the way that they grew up, like the way that they behaved or acted? Like, you could tell like they're not from America. Maybe they're more respectful, less respectful. Like, how is that playing against different countries?
It was yeah, that's really, I would have never thought to talk about that in this, but you're exactly right. It is very noticeable watching other countries act and stuff, because whereas other countries would look at us and be like, these guys look like they just are brainwashed because they just walk in we don't actually do this, but it was like you look at it, they would look at us like we walked in a straight line with suit and ties on, and like never said a word unless somebody told us to say something.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just us like just making sure we're feeling out the waters, making sure we're behaving. Whereas other countries, like me and my roommate got stuck. So everybody got their own hall. Every team got their own hall because of fights, because there had been fights in the past that had broken out. So everybody got their own hall. And for some reason, me and my roommate got in, I think 2 other groups on our team got stuck in the hall with Cuba, which is a team that I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
Cuba was also there. We got stuck in a hall with Cuba, and I swear the Cubans party until 4 a.m. Not joking. It was so hard to sleep. Like you like watch movies and like, you know, like it's like a party movie or whatever, and people are throwing pillows over the ear. Like, that was real. Like, they are up till 4 o'clock listening to Cuban party rap songs, and they are just going at it all night. And it's the most annoying thing ever, especially when you have to pitch the next day.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, all the kids on that USA team, I'm sure they practice a couple times a week with their travel ball team. At how old were you when you went? 14?
Yeah, 14.
Okay, 14. So they're practicing with their travel ball teams. Everybody has to wear the same thing. Say like a black pair of shorts, blue top. They're like going through like strict like practices, but all those other countries, at least like Venezuela, probably Cuba, they're in the street playing baseball with a freaking stick and
right. Exactly.
So that's the thing. They're not walking in a straight line. They're just freaking being athletes and having a good time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I feel like sometimes there's pros and cons to both. There are pros and cons to both sides.
100%.
Like, from one side you learn discipline from being like in the American side of it, you learn about discipline. You know, like everybody matches. So when you get to pro ball, if you get that far in baseball, when you get to pro ball, everybody matches. Everybody is a unit on the field. Whereas like the Cuban people or just like Latin players or any players that really aren't from America, honestly, you have to learn that when you go to pro ball. They have to be taught that like you have to wear something to practice that's like everybody else, and it just takes time for them. So I think that's a pro, but also the con to being like that is, you know, you're not. Sometimes you lose the ability to play free and loose. Like those guys do.
Yeah.
And sometimes it amounts to less success on the field. It really does. But you, like I said earlier, with like the belt, you have to find the middle, like and figure out what's best for you, and then take that and run with it.
And you got to find it as soon as possible. Like in my case, I wish I would have found it earlier. My career could be over at any moment. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, just like work on finding that bell curve and like where you feel comfortable. And like in the grand scheme of things, if you're a freshman, sophomore in high school, and you need to take like 2 or 3 games to like find out where you're most comfortable playing, like your zone, like take those games, because in the grand scheme of things, those games probably won't matter. So take advantage of like finding that bell curve, finding the middle of that bell curve, so you can play with that free thing. And anytime you get tense or you don't care enough, you can refer back to that and think like how I was playing when I focused on like how I was playing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
That's another thing. That's another good thing about, growing up the way I did, playing for as long as I did. I feel like I found that very early. I found that I found that right before, honestly, I went to play for Team USA. I figured out who I was on the field, and because ever since Team USA, I've kind of been in tough situations. I've been in stressful situations on the field, whether it be for Team USA or whether it be in high school. My freshman year, I started the season opener. I had no idea what to expect, but you have to figure out how to channel some of that energy and use it to your advantage, or to just let go sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like it's so tied to performance, like finding the middle of that bell curve, finding the peak performance. Like, you see it a lot of times that you think that people don't work as hard as you, and yet they still go out there and perform. And I feel like a lot of it is that they're in such a good mindset that it's like easier for them, instead of like I press a lot of times and I go up thinking, okay, I gotta get a hit there. I know this pitcher's not better than me, like I know that for a fact, but I still might get beat. So at the same time, I'm thinking like that, where I should just be up there like having fun at the same time, but still be focused enough to have a game plan up there. Don't just go up there swinging.
Yeah. Don't just go up there guessing the whole time.
Right.
And I feel like with you, Ethan, just watching you, I mean, I feel like we've been pretty good friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And watching you through everything you do in life, school, even practice, hanging out with friends, just literally every like daily activity, I feel like there's nothing you love more than playing baseball and like pitching. And even if you don't think that's true, like I just feel like that's the way you play. And I admire that so much about you, and we're going to talk about that later, but I just really admire that from you, and I think, you're living at the perfect spot of the bell curve.
Yeah, I just feel that's where you said we're going to talk about it later, so I won't go too in depth, but
great.
That's where I feel the most comfortable is on the baseball field. I've never felt any more comfortable in any situation other than hunting, maybe, and that's just that's where my brain is settled. It's content with where I'm at, kind of. It's where I'm comfortable in my own skin.
And that's perfect. Like, I know you struggle with like just focus and stuff, and I'm not trying to go too in depth. Sorry if that's oversharing, but like when you're on a pitcher's man, like you're as focused as anyone ever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just so cool to see something like that. Just like your mind is just clear. And you talked about hunting too, and I'd love to talk to you about hunting on here too. Just like how that mindset applies, because like my favorite player in the league is Austin Riley, and he says that he has 2 seasons, like baseball season and hunting season. Yep. So I mean, obviously there's a correlation, because you're a great player, Austin's a great player, and just that peace you feel, because what I do I like to clear my mind. I love to golf. I would, like this summer, I would go out and golf for 4 hours at a time just by myself and just think, and I think it helped out my playing. So I would love to hear about how like hunting, like how does that like affect your mindset, because when you got a barrel of a gun pointed at an animal, it's a kind of a high pressure situation.
Oh, for sure.
And same thing as bases loaded, 2 outs, and you're on the bump.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, do you have any correlations between those two things that they've taught you? Hunting has taught you in as far as baseball goes.
Yeah, and I mean, whether it be so. I'm not trying to get too in depth or anything with what I do, but
and sorry, and you bow hunt, so that's a lot more.
I was about to say.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't think about that. That's a lot more pressure situation.
So using a gun, it got to the point where it was too easy, honestly, to shoot an animal and kill it.
You wanted the challenge.
The sport was gone. Yeah. So, with baseball too, you always I love the sport of baseball because it doesn't matter how good you are, you're always going to be challenged.
Yeah.
100%. You're a Hall of Fame baseball player if you fail 7 out of 10 times. That's the only sport you could ever do that in. Like, if you miss 7 out of 10 passes in football, you suck.
Yeah,
you're not going anywhere. But you miss 7 out of 10 shots in basketball, again, you suck. You're not going anywhere. So baseball it's just like that. So going into bow hunting, just pulling back on something, on an animal from from 25, 30 yards.
And you have one shot.
You can't just like reload quick and shoot again. Like it's like a high pressure situation. You learn how to control your emotions, control your mind, control your adrenaline somewhat. Now your adrenaline shoots through the roof, but you control your body and everything around you. You can kind of control the animal in a sense, and it's fulfilling, and it just brings the human brain satisfaction. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the same with baseball. Is in high pressure situations, like he said, with 2 outs, bases loaded, something like that, maybe a 3-2 count, you always dream about that situation, but you don't know the severity of that situation until you get in that situation.
Right.
So there's no way to replicate it. And I feel like, honestly, hunting it helps with that, because you learn how to control your adrenaline. You can learn how to control where your brain goes. Like, you can't be thinking about failing in that situation, because if you think about failing, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You're not going to execute the pitch the right way, and you're going to walk the guy, or worse comes to worse, and you get a grand slam blasted off of you, So I think both kind of help with each other. Mm-hmm. And when I'm playing baseball and I need a break from baseball, hunting is my therapy, kind of. Even if I never killed anything, I could go out there and sit in a tree stand for 4 hours, and I could feel at peace, just by myself, just at peace. Just listening to the birds chirp, watching deer walk by if I don't want to shoot one that doesn't look big enough, or it's a doe, or whatever. It just brings the human body peace, and it makes me rest. That way, when I come back, I'm ready to play. And that's another thing. I'm not trying to like take over here, guys.
No, you're good.
But you always, with baseball, and I'm sure this is with all sports, as you guys would know, you have to know the right formula for you on how often you have to take breaks from baseball. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. We talked about that with Huddy too.
Yeah, whether it be a 3-day period or a 24-hour period or just a 5-hour period, sometimes you have to take breaks completely and clear your brain of baseball completely, because if you don't, you're not gonna perform to your highest ability. You might perform good, but you won't perform to your highest ability, right? So like that's what hunting does for me, is it allows me to just completely drain my brain of all things outside of what I'm doing, and I'm just able to focus on just relaxing and doing one task at hand, and most of the time that's killing an animal.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting, because I've known you for how many, 3-4 years now
at least,
and I've never really talked to you about that. So that's really cool, like that you have something to clear your brain, and that it helps you on the baseball field as well. That's really interesting.
And then absolutely, Q. And there's a show on Disney Plus, Limitless. Me and Q have talked about it quite a bit, and in that show, Chris Hemsworth, he's trying to find out like all the ways to like live longer, and pretty much his stress level is really high, his blood pressure is really high, and so I can't remember if it was what kind of doctor she was, but she helped him out, and to combat his stress, they put him in stress situations, and like that's the same thing for you, even though you're probably not hunting to make you a better baseball player. Like, that's not your main thing. That's good to combat your stress when you're in a big situation, in another stressful situation, because then you can learn a breathing technique. Like, that's what we talked about in the show, a breathing technique, just places to take your mind that can make another situation easier. And you can learn to turn from that one situation to the other. And then also you talked about how you're not going to think about failing. Like when you got bow drawn, you're not going to think about missing the deer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's an analogy I wanted to share. It talks about a skier, and like when a skier is like weaving through all the trees and stuff, like he's not thinking about a tree, because if he thinks about a tree, he's hitting that tree. Exactly. So that's all I wanted to share. And Quentin, you want to take from there?
Yeah, that's great. That's a nice analogy.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Man, that was dope. So I kind of want to switch gears a little bit here. Don't say anything that you're not supposed to. Like, if you have to skip this question, it's completely fine. But if you could, we'd just like you to talk about your draft process a little bit. If you can, it's completely okay. We could just go to the next question.
So this is kind of I'm gonna have to kind of skate around a little bit of this, but I don't really. People talk to me, and I'm not trying to dog on y'all or anything, I promise, but they're like, hey Mag, like what are you wanting to do or whatever. I'm just like, I have no idea. I really have no idea, because on one hand I have the draft, which holds all kinds of possibilities, right? And then on the other hand, I have Vanderbilt,
Right.
which an incredible education, an incredible coaching staff, an incredible atmosphere to play in. You get to play SEC baseball, and you get to have a chance to contend for a World Series every year, a College World Series every single year. You go out, you have a chance to play in the College World Series at Vanderbilt. It's been proven pretty much. You know, you're always going to be a contender for everything.
Good chance, yeah.
Yeah, with a good chance. So it's just there's so many pros and so little cons, honestly, that every one of these situations is up in the air, and it's just gonna come down to seeing how everything plays out for me to make a decision on what I want to do. So I really couldn't tell you honestly and give you a fair way of putting it to you, other than I don't know. Really. Yeah. I mean, I've met with teams seem to like me, but at the same time I have no idea where this is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a great position. That's a great spot. I'm not
I would
gonna lie.
love those challenges.
Oh yeah, I would love those too. If that was what was keeping me up at night, I'd love that as well. Like, you got Vandy over here or draft over here. Like I don't know which one I want.
Trying to win a College World Series or a National World Series.
Right.
Which one am I gonna get?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I'm gonna take it back, one step back, kind of back to your traveling. So, you'd say probably your draft process, like what got the ball rolling? Would you say that was the All-American game? And if so, or if not, talk a little bit about the All-American game to us.
You know, I haven't really thought about it a whole lot, but I'd say yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think last high school season helped quite a bit,
mm-hmm.
and then I think going into this summer helped. I pitched pretty well this summer. I pitched in Indianapolis,
mm-hmm.
pitched in New Mexico,
That's right.
And then even at the tryouts for All-American, you know,
mm-hmm.
there were a ton of scouts at the National in Tampa Bay, and I threw lights out at the National. I threw very well at the National, and then so I made it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to what's called East Coast Pro, which some of the viewers might know what that is. It's just another showcase pretty much, and I didn't do great there. You know, I had a bad outing. I was just psyched out. It was like, you know, you learn from your mistakes. As I was talking about earlier with hunting and stuff, you have to learn how to control your body and control your emotions, control what's going through your head. Don't worry about failing. I failed to do all of that in that situation.
Yeah.
I failed to do all of that. But in doing that and failing in that position, I was able to take that and use it to my advantage at All-American.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to succeed in All-American. I pitched pretty well at All-American. I pitched twice in 3 days at All-American.
Yeah,
so
that's hard to do.
And both times I pitched pretty good. You know, I don't want to get velo's not everything, but on one day's rest I was still 92 to 95.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just everything you have to give and take on everything in your career, kind of.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But yes, the All-American games, they did help. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know, it's a very highly
Viewed,
scouted situation,
Mm-hmm.
and so is, you know, East Coast Pro helped with that
Yeah.
as well. You know, I've had scouts that have told me, like, I went to East Coast Pro and I was like, oh great, you watched me at East Coast Pro, and they were like, well, it's not all bad. You know, they took some good things from it,
Right.
and that's what athletes have to understand. And I've had to understand is just because you have a bad outing doesn't mean they're not watching, you know, maybe how you react in the dugout,
exactly.
or how you act towards your teammates when you're in your highest highs and your lowest lows.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true.
So you have to give and take everything. You have a bad outing, okay, still be a good teammate, because somebody's watching.
Right.
So, but sorry, I got off on a tangent.
No,
But
you're
yeah,
good.
All-American, it obviously helped. It helped with getting scouted and everything else. But I think preparation is the most important part, honestly, to this, because let's say somebody goes to All-American, they haven't prepared, they're not going to do very well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the 50 best players in the nation.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you have to be able to prepare as well. So,
and like all those players that are there, I'm sure everybody watching who knows the game of baseball knows those players. Did you learn anything from them? Not even just playing wise. Did you have any conversations kind of like what me and Quinn were saying not to have? Just what they do mentally, how they approach the game, how they even, like you talked about, just prepare.
Great question.
Yeah, I mean, I learned some stuff. I learned probably more about how they prepare for their own games, especially pitchers, because I was there as a pitcher, so I was around the pitchers more. I learned how some guys prepare differently than I do. Some guys don't do bands and plyo balls and then do long toss and throw. Some guys just do bands and long toss and throw, or some guys skip the bands part and do plyos. It just depends on the person, depends on what works for them, and also how they put themselves in their own mindset. Personally, I listen to rock music. There are some guys who have to listen to DJ Khaled or something like that before they play. They have to listen to an album of that, or they have to listen to Drake or something like that to actually get themselves in the game, to get themselves ready for the game. I'm not necessarily like that. I like listening to rock music, but it just depends on the person. You have to find what's best for you. But another thing that I learned is, I learned about guys' personal lives as well, because again, when you're there, just like Team USA, they take the 50 best players or 55 best players or something like that, and they throw them all in one field and say, fend for yourselves.
Right.
So I'm not like most of those guys. Some of those guys that play for 5-Star National and the Canes and the Indiana Bulls or whatever, they know each other because they played against each other. They played for each other. The last 2 summers, I went off the grid. I played in Ohio. I lived in Ohio. I played 2 tournaments all summer. So they didn't really know who I was. So I was kind of a fish out of water, and I just went into it knowing a couple guys that I played on Team USA with. Aiden Miller. I met Max, didn't make 15U, but he made 18U. Great player, great guy. I hung around him. And a couple other guys that I was there with, but you learn a lot about a guy's personal life when you have to be around them for that many hours every day. You learn the hardships that they had to go through, which is sad sometimes. You learn about their ups, their downs, and you learn about everything, and you get personal with these kids, and sometimes it can make you emotional. There was a kid, I don't remember exactly what family member it was. They just had it was one of their parents, I believe, that they just had passed away not too long before the All-American games, and he got a standing ovation at the All-American games, and it was an emotional time for him. Like he started crying and everything, and it was just like you can't blame him for it, like that's an emotional period for him, especially because his aunt and uncle were fortunate enough where they were great to him. They were able to come down there and support him, and it was good to see. Baseball is such a family sport. It's a family aspect sport, and to see that carry off the field as well was really nice.
Yeah, completely. I'm seeing a recurring theme here with like the USA and the All-American. They just throw you into the fire and expect you to figure it out yourself. Yep. And from what I've heard about minor leagues too, it's the same thing. Yes. Like you're going out there for 12 hours a day. You're just getting thrown into the fire. You're not in the best conditions by any means, and you're expected to go out there and perform each and every day. So that's what I'm hearing from you, and I'm learning is like they have no problem doing that.
Yeah, and you'll hear the same thing from my brother about, like you said, pro ball.
Yeah.
He got drafted. They sent him off within a week. Like, he had just enough time to pack and leave, and they sent him off to Phoenix, which is where the All-American games were at, so I got to see him. I hadn't seen him in 6 months until I saw him in Phoenix. So I was able to see him, and he was talking to me, and he was like, okay, so his sophomore year, they went to the College World Series. They got to the actual the final series, the championship series part of it, and they played against Mississippi State. Well, Mississippi State beat him, so obviously he had something against Mississippi State, right? Well, when he got drafted, his catcher for the Reds when he was up there was Tanner Allen.
Yeah.
Which was the catcher for Mississippi State. Ended up being very close with Tanner Allen. Tanner Allen's a really good guy, apparently. I don't know anything about him. Chris does because he was with him. But it's just situations like that where you sink or swim, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
they don't care that you had beef with the college team. That's not what it's about. It's about it's a business at that point, and they want to see who's going to be able to play pro ball and who's not, you know?
And that's what I was just about to ask you is, obviously all these guys that we're talking about are super successful, and I just want to talk about, like, they're getting thrown in that fire. I would assume, from what I know, that those guys are able to handle the fire. They're not the ones who, we talked a little bit about it, like, you didn't know going in what day you were going to pitch, right?
Pitch for what?
For All-American.
I knew that I was going to pitch the first day. Had no idea that I was going to pitch the second day.
But it was, like, pretty...
it was pretty, yeah. It was
like,
pretty
you
big,
found out shortly
Yeah,
before? Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, were there guys who felt like they should have been pitching, didn't pitch, and then they, like, start acting out? Or can those dudes, like, top 50 player in the country, have they learned to handle it, and that's, like, part of the way that they're successful?
It's both ends of the spectrum there. There are guys who are very humble, down to earth. I'd like to think of myself as that. I don't know. The players that I have played with in the past may not think so.
Yeah.
But, you know, I didn't know when I was throwing. Didn't really worry about it. I was more worried about the fact that I was getting to go and throw.
Yeah.
You know?
Soak it on in.
Yeah. So, but there's guys like that where they're just like, hey, like, we're going to throw when we throw, you know?
Yeah.
And then there's guys that are like, well, I'm the best there is, and I should be throwing. I should be starting, and I should be going 8 innings out of a 9-inning game because they did 9 innings there. And they were like, we should be going 4 innings, and we should be starting, and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know why this guy's playing over me, blah, blah. And I was just like, guys, calm down. Like, you get all, like, first of all, to start off with, the hotel to start off with was amazing.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. You get all the gear you want when you walk in the door, too. Like, when you walk in the door to your hotel room, it's laid out for you. They laid it out for you on your bed. Yeah. You are getting treated like a king. Stop worrying about that. You're going to pitch. You're not going to come here and not play at all. Like, you're going to be able to play. So just calm down and just soak it in and have fun, you know? So that's kind of, you had both ends of the spectrum in that situation.
It just goes back to the bell curve and just like a different.
Yeah, and you know, some players, they have that bell curve because they're the greatest player where they live. But when they get thrown into a fire with other guys, with the 50 other guys in the country that are the best players, and they're not getting what they want, their bell curve it's not a bell curve anymore.
Yeah.
What like stood out to me whenever you said that was the fact that those guys that went to the All-American game, they're the same age as us. They're not like some big higher being that's figured everything out. They still have problems and they're still learning along the way as well. So that's what really just stood out to me.
Yeah.
Yes. And the sad part is, you know, and my brother again got drafted, dealt with it. There's guys in pro ball that are in their late 20s that still don't know their bell curve. They still don't know how to handle themselves professionally. They're not being professionals.
But they had just enough talent, just enough of the pieces to get them to that spot.
Yes, they got just enough to get drafted, put on a show for these scouts to get drafted and get some money that they wanted. And now they're going to start complaining about everything, you know? So you have to be I feel like in the sport of baseball especially, you have to be a well-rounded person to be successful. And if there's very few that aren't, but there are some that aren't, they're really cocky and everything else, but it's just not as common. You know, you have to be a well-rounded person in baseball.
At the end of the day, you got to be able to learn to turn. Like, not even like trying to be sarcastic. Like, that's literally what it is. That's good stuff, though. I was super excited for you to go to the All-American game and watch you on TV, so that was a cool experience. And it feels like a long time ago. When you said that was like 6 months ago, I was like, yeah, that's crazy. This year's flying by.
It has flown by incredibly fast. That was just in August. I mean, it's really in reality, it's not too terribly long ago, but it feels like forever ago.
Literally. Okay, so let's move on. If you could, like, we've talked about this a little bit, me and you. If you weren't expecting to have a career in baseball, what would your career path be? Like, what interests you in a way that you would want to make your life's work besides baseball?
Yeah, so I have two pretty different things. So coming from the family that I come from, my dad went to Illinois State first. He got his agricultural business degree. And so he has a degree he literally has a degree in agriculture. And he learns, but it's also with business, so he learns how to like make a business out of it pretty much. So with that, I've always grown up, we have a farm in Kentucky. That's where I hunt deer. So that's where I would shift to probably. I would either be a farmer pretty much, or I have two other things that I'm really interested in. I would either be a Marine or I would be in the Secret Service. That's one thing that I'm learning about right now that I'm going through is, I thought, and I'll just get past this real quick. It really interested me yesterday, but I learned that to be in the Secret Service, you don't have to have a criminal justice degree. All you have to do is have a teaching degree, which is what I'm going to Vanderbilt to get pretty much. I can have a teaching degree and be in the Secret Service. It doesn't really matter what you're studying. So, like, if people are out there and they're interested in that, just know you don't have to have a degree, a special degree for being in the Secret Service or something like that. You can have whatever degree you want. They hire lawyers, doctors, whatever you want to be. You can have that as your backup because they understand, you're going to have to retire at some point. You might want another job. So you can get your degree in something, be in the Secret Service, and then retire, and then I could go teach or something like that, So that's what I would do that is my backup, honestly, is being in the Secret Service. So that's what I would like to do after I get done playing regardless. Yeah. So there you go.
That's awesome, man. Cool to hear. And to share some of your knowledge, I would have never guessed that. So do they just like train you or something like?
Yeah, so they train you for everything. So if you're on protection detail for presidents or vice presidents or whatever, they train you on how to protect the president or the being you're protecting. And then there's also forensic part of the Secret Service. There's fraud part of the Secret Service. They have everything. They have a lot, honestly. But I would want to be on the protection detail part of it, just because I feel like that's where my passion would be. Or I could be on the tactical part of it, which is what they have, which is like a very, very intense, basically SWAT unit. Okay. It's just like if you think about Metro Nashville SWAT unit, if you could multiply that by like 100, that's probably what it'd be like. Yeah, it's very there's a reason it's the Secret Service because you don't know what they do. Yeah. So
that's awesome. I feel like that's a perfect segue into my next question. So this can be either about baseball. Actually, we kind of want to get both baseball and life outside of baseball. Do you have any goals? Do you have any dreams? You want to be in the Hall of Fame? You want to be All-Star? What do you see? What are your life goals right now?
There are obviously it'd be amazing, beyond amazing, to be in the Hall of Fame or to be in an All-Star game or something. But my dream personally is you have to get there first. Right. You have to play big league baseball before you can do anything else. I want to play big league baseball. I can worry about being an All-Star or being in the Hall of Fame after that. But I would like to get there first. One of my dreams in life is just to have a family. I want to have kids. I want to have a good family. And if baseball doesn't work out, you have to switch to life. Right. You have to have a steady job to be able to afford to have a family. I want to be around my existing family that I have right now. I want to be around them quite a bit. I want to be close with them. I just want to be a personable person, kind of thing.
Yeah, and like that's one of the things we set off to do here is obviously if baseball doesn't work out, it did in a way because baseball taught you so many things. Right. And in the intro and in the episode of Coach Hudson, we talked about all the things that baseball can teach you in life. Not all of them, but just competing and stuff, and how you're gonna have to carry that into your life outside of baseball, regardless. And so,
like Coach Hudson says, compete for the hottest girl at school.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, absolutely, man.
This was just something I was thinking about. Like I want to say this. Like, it's something really obvious, but I was thinking about like the math, and I was like, you only really could play baseball max for like a fourth of your life. That's maximum. If you live to be 100, you play like 25 years, right? I mean, you don't play baseball very long. At some point, you're going to have to retire. So you're going to have to do, like, as far as financially or just, like, life in general. Like, you got to find something to do.
Right. And, there are guys like Albert Pujols played for pretty much half his life.
Yeah,
there are guys like that. But at the same time, there are
also
other guys who flame out in 3 years.
A lot of guys. 99.9%.
Yeah. And, you never hear about the guys who work their butts off for 15 years and they only get to AA or AAA.
Right. Yeah.
And they play baseball. They play professional baseball for 15 to 20 years and don't get anywhere. And then they finally have to hang up the cleats. Those are the guys that honestly, those are the guys that are the most worried about finding their backup plans because you don't get paid very much money in minor league baseball.
Right.
And you probably are in your backup plan while you're playing baseball. Sorry.
Exactly.
You're probably working another job and stuff like that.
Exactly. So those are the guys you don't hear about. The guys that play big league baseball, even for maybe 4 or 5 years, they might be set after that. They might not have to work another job. But, it just depends on the person and the situation.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So that's super cool to hear about, and hopefully, I know your family's probably pretty stoked about all the steps forward that, especially Chris, just that the minor leagues are taking and stuff like that. And obviously, we don't have all the knowledge on that, but that's gonna be cool for you to enter into, hopefully soon enough as well.
Is it time, Deacon?
For what one?
For the mentality?
Oh yeah, it's time.
I think it's time.
It's time.
I think it's time.
So here we go. We talked about the Mac mindset. Ethan gets fired up on the mound, slaps his glove. Umpire doesn't give him a call he likes. He's catching the ball with his body turned like that. He's pissed off. He's yelling. He's sweating, dripping down his face, sweat on his goggles. It's a pretty unique mindset. A unique playing style. Yeah. And the Ethan that you have gotten for however long this podcast has been going is a lot different from the Ethan you get on a mound, and for all the best reasons.
So much different.
And we are so grateful that he can turn on that Hulk switch or something like that. So, sorry, that was a long intro.
No, you're good. There are kids, I'm going to shout out Charles Winifred right here, but there are kids at school that have asked me what it's like to watch me play, and I have had to tell them, there's not a great way to explain it. You're just going to have to come and watch me play because I get pretty intense.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things when I play is if you're not playing with intensity on my team, I don't have time for you, kind of thing. If you're not playing with intensity, you're not showing that you want to win, in my opinion. You're not showing that you want to be there. You're not showing that you care for the teammates that are around you. I will fight for every single one of you. I don't care if we had beef before the game started or not. I will fight for every single one of you. It's somebody asked me the other day how many guys I had hit in high school. I was like, okay, well, if you're talking about sophomore year, I hit 4 guys and 3 of them were on purpose. 2 times because 2 guys.
One of them was me in the inter squad.
2 times because a guy slid into Eric at shortstop.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
And I'm not afraid to tell him, look, you slide into my shortstop, my second baseman, my third baseman, my catcher. I mean, anything. You start to do stuff, I will walk up to you and tell you, look, this one's for you. And then I'll hit the next batter. I will beam the next batter in the ribs because I don't deal with it. You're going to play dirty, I'll play dirty right back. If you're going to yell at me, I'll strike the next 3 out, and then I'll just kind of walk back to the dugout, McGregor style, and I'll just sit down, and then I'll talk to my players, do what I want, and then I'll come back and strike the next 3 out. I don't care. I will kill every team that I step on the mound against because I will not be beaten. That's my mentality kind of thing. Kill or be killed kind of thing.
Right.
And that's how it's always going to be. I might show it a little bit less at times, but in my head, I'm always thinking kill or be killed.
I mean, even just like this, you're just talking about it, and you're getting fired up.
Yeah,
you're breathing hard and stuff, and I love it. But one thing that I was, as I was just kind of preparing for this episode, just thinking about it, I feel like even when you're in the batter's box, you're never in the mindset you are on a mound. Maybe to a lesser degree, but I just want to talk about what is it. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but what is it that pitching gets you so fired up? And I guess it's you have the ball every pitch, so you have to be dialed in like that. But I feel like in an at bat, I mean, obviously it's 2 separate different things, but in an at bat you're more focused and deliberate. So what is it about pitching that gives you that kill or be killed mindset?
It's the bell curve, pretty much. You have to find what works for you, pretty much. So with pitching, I can be aggressive, and you can see the aggressiveness coming out of me. Kind of, I can be sweating down my face. I can be rocking back and forth because I'm feeling myself. Or like I can just be aggressive in that situation, and it works. Yeah, and it pays off. When I'm hitting, I have found out the more aggressive that I get, the more balls I'm just gonna swing over. Yeah, or something like that. You know, I have to be when I'm hitting, I have to be calm. You know, I have to like bring myself back to normal. Yeah, and then I can go through my at bat with a clear mind. When I'm pitching, I can be aggressive with a clear mind, but even more so with hitting, you have to just be like. I feel like even especially with me, I don't know if it is with y'all. Yeah, but totally. With hitting, you can't be like grr, and then just try to muscle the ball up. It just never works. It never seems to work.
I felt that today. Me and Quentin hit before this, and just a simple thing I was doing. I just like let my hands like rest a little more, and I mean I've probably tried that 100 times, but today it just felt really good, and just to loosen up, and I felt like I was getting through the ball quicker.
Yeah, you always hear like coaches talk about like controlled aggressiveness. So I was like, yeah, that's super good. But for anybody still watching, if you haven't came and watched this guy play, it's a must see. Like eventually people are going to be paying for that. He's a different demon on the mound, and it's so fun to watch. Funny story actually, at Summit, he actually broke my water bottle, and like. Maybe like I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a little bit of rage, frustration.
I can tell a story if you want.
But you broke it.
It was an accident.
It was an accident. You broke it, and I was like, I'm not even mad because he's so passionate about. He's just so passionate about this game, especially because it was Summit. Like I can't even be mad at him right now.
Ethan's old school. Summit is Ethan's old school.
So I transferred from Summit to Nolensville, which is where I met these guys. So I'll just go ahead
and I just want to point out, all three of us had a really good game that game. So
yeah, I'll go ahead and just tell a short version of the story, kind of. So I think it was the 6th. But did I get taken out in the 6th or 7th?
I think it was 7th. I think he let you go back in the 6th and then 6.1.
Yeah, because Ricky came out.
Yeah, I think it was something like 6.1 innings. Well, I got taken out of the game, and I wasn't super happy about that. You know, I was pretty pissed at coach for taking me out. So I kind of went in the dugout, and I wasn't real happy. So I might have kicked a locker. Yeah, it was in the dugout. The Summit, it wasn't super hard. Yeah, but it had some rage behind it, you know. And when I kicked the locker, the water bottle fell off the top of the locker and fell right in front of my face and broke. And I still to this day feel so bad for breaking that water bottle.
And it was one of the ones. It was one of the ones that like told you where you should be drinking at the day.
Yeah.
So it's like Quentin's whole day was erased. He had to start over, get a whole new water bottle. That day was over. Calendar crossed out, ripped out. But yeah, we got the dub that day, but the next 2 games were pretty bad. Yeah, we got it. We don't talk about that.
We're ready this year.
Yeah, we're
most of.
Come on. So that's amazing, Ethan. Q, what you got? You up?
So as we pull into this last chapter, I know we've had you here for a long time. You gotta go. We just wanted to get into the more like almost emotional spot. You're a senior. We asked the same question to Coach Hudson. I want you to tell us, what does NOLO mean to you? Like, what does Nolensville High School mean to you?
That's a load. That's a lot to unpack, honestly. Again, you know, if I go back from the beginning, it gives me chills to think about it. If I go back from the beginning I think about transferring and the transfer process and how long it took and how just nervous you are the whole time, and then figuring out after appealing it 4 times that I was going to be able to transfer and getting here, and then I had to there was a sense in me where I had to prove myself to every single one of you, and I'm getting that. Last year I didn't have that necessarily, you know. I wasn't trying to prove myself anymore. I think I played better under those circumstances, you know. I had a very good sophomore year. Real quick, shout out to my brother. He had 103 strikeouts his senior year. I was chasing that record my sophomore year because I wanted it so bad. I wanted to see if I could strike out 103 people. My strikeout total ended up adding up to somewhere around 147.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So I
Insane.
blew that out, you know. But again, going back to what y'all asked, Nolensville, even the town, means the world to me. Everybody here, y'all have been so great to me, and it's emotional to think about, you know, what I can give back because of the atmosphere that Nolensville has, and the camaraderie, and just the community here is insane. Like, everybody supports everybody, it seems like. So it's just really fun, and I hope that a state championship can give something back this year.
For sure.
If we can get that.
For sure.
Just keep winning every game. And we've loved having you here. Like, obviously, we have countless memories. Could you share like a couple of your favorite memories just throughout the years? Like, what comes to mind? And also, before I forget, could you just tell us the number of perfect games and no-hitters you've thrown in your time just at Nolensville?
At Nolensville?
Yeah. I've
thrown one perfect game. I think I've thrown 2 no-hitters, and I've thrown like 6 one-hitters, and a couple games where I had 2 or 3 hits here and there that were just bloopy hits. My first ever district start for Nolensville was against Marshall County. That's one of my favorite memories.
I remember that one.
That was
it was taken from you.
It was a one-hitter.
Oh, that's right.
It was taken from you.
It was a one-hitter because
that.
the ball dropped in right field. The right fielder felt so bad. It was Jackson Hill. But I ended up having 18 strikeouts that game. And it felt, again, I was trying to prove myself to y'all. That was my first district start.
Right.
The game before that was the game that I pitched against Independence.
Yeah.
And I didn't do great.
Right.
I didn't have a good outing.
Yeah.
I had a fractured vertebrae in my back that I was trying to come back from.
Yeah, that's right.
Pitched too early. I shouldn't have pitched that game. I think I was setting myself up for failure in that game.
Yeah. Because you have to put that in the back of your mind, not only besides the pain.
Exactly. And then going into that game felt really good. Making it to state sophomore year, I walked off districts sophomore year.
Oh, yes.
I walked off districts, and then like 30 seconds later I got the district MVP. So it felt pretty good. And then hit 2 home runs in the region championship, making it to state with y'all. I know state was an emotional time for all 3 of us, for various reasons. But also going into junior year, kind of, it's not like I didn't have a leadership role sophomore year, but going into junior year, kind of, I set the tone sophomore year for leading into the junior year. And kind of, it felt like, me and a couple other guys, including you, we were kind of putting the attitude of the team kind of on our backs and trying to carry it through the season, trying to like get the team to have one attitude. We struggled with that a little last year, I'm not gonna lie, and I think that's something that we have going into this year that's really well thought out and really well put in. And then it didn't turn out like we wanted it to, but I feel like you can't replace any memory with success than you have with the people that you're around.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I mean, like you're saying, all the bad memories are just probably better than the good memories, honestly, or at least all the failures are better than the successes. Because another parable kind of thing I was reading today, it talks about like turbulent winds and an eagle. Like, turbulent winds make an eagle like better for so many reasons. First of all, it gets wind under its wings, so it can fly higher. When it's flying higher, it has a better view of everything underneath it, so it can see all the food it's looking for, okay? Mm-hmm. And it makes it fly faster. So it's kind of just talking about, like, all these bad times are only making us better, and it sucks that all our seniors last year graduated, and we had to go out on kind of they had to go out on a mm-hmm. bad note. But at the same time, those are such valuable experiences, because me personally, I've learned so much from those experiences, from our culture, and it taught me how I needed to lead into this year to try and build a culture that was actually to work. Because last year we were pressing for a culture.
Yes.
We were pressing, and that caused us to press in games. And we lost a lot of games we shouldn't have. We didn't even compete in games we should have killed teams and, like, all sorts of things. So I think that's just going to be something that we had to take from last year and previous years to take it in this year and be successful.
For sure. I 100% agree.
This is the last question.
All right.
Sadly, this is the last question, but I wanted you to give us your personal and team goals for this season.
I feel like all three of us, our team goal, just the one that you think of off the top of the head, is to win state.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to win state. That's why there's only two teams who do it, or one team who does it, and then throughout the different divisions, there's other teams, but there's only one team that wins state, and there's a reason for that because it's so difficult. But my goal, I can say, I want to clinch districts. I want to win the district championship. I want to win the region championship, and I want to win state. But if you look at it, I want to have a good culture this year. I want the team to have fun. I want to just be successful on and off the field as a team. Last year we weren't real successful off the field as a team because nobody wanted to talk to each other, it seemed like. Right? So I want to improve on that this year, and I want everybody to be closer than what we were last year, kind of more of a family aspect. Personal goals, I want to have a below 1 ERA, I want to have 100 strikeouts plus and less than 15 walks all season. Going past that, I want to get drafted. I want to be high in the draft. I want to be able to feel like there's a certain round and a certain amount of money that makes a player feel like they're important. And I want to feel that, But if I don't, at the same time, go to college.
Yeah, you got the next best.
Yeah. Exactly. So there's a lot of goals. I come up with goals every day, honestly. Personal goals in my life, or goals on the baseball field. It doesn't matter. I come up with them every day. And I feel like the more smaller goals that I make, the quicker I get to my big goals.
Yeah.
The quicker I achieve my big goals. Because it's not all about where you're trying to go. It's most of the time about the road that gets you where you're going.
Yeah.
So, everybody wants to – there's people who want to look at me and be like, oh, like, you're good or whatever, and you're good right now, but, like, look behind me. Like, look who got me here kind of thing. Look who helped get me here. Look who my parents, worked to get me to all of my tournaments, all of my games, all of my practices, everything, They forked out money for plane tickets and everything. Like, they're incredible. So I want to be able to pay it off to them too. Monetary value and, mental value.
It's a huge word.
What?
Monetary is a huge word.
I would love to be able to help them financially, and I would love to help them with their mind. When your child becomes successful in society's eye, a parent feels a success a little bit more too, because they're the one who raised you. Yeah. So it's just, I would like to do so much, and I have tiny goals every day to get me to where I'm going, and before you know it, you're gonna get there, kind of thing.
Yeah, and you can't control if some team's gonna draft you, but you can control your tiny goals. You can control showing up to a workout, giving your 100% effort. You can control your attitude. You can control all that stuff. So
for the young players out there, this is if you don't listen to anything else that I've said, the one thing that I wanted you to listen to is control what you can control. Your attitude, your work ethic, and that's pretty much about it,
And how good a teammate you are. I guess it's part of attitude, but
that kind of falls into the attitude part. But the better person you are, I feel like the better success is going to come for you.
Right.
The better teammate you are, the better success is going to come for you. The more you work in your relationships outside of baseball, the better you're going to be towards your family, your loved ones, whatever. The more you work inside of baseball, the better you're going to be, right? So it just all falls into the same thing. So
yeah, I just want to point something out. If this guy is saying it, and in the future he'll get drafted, he's a Vanderbilt signee, that's just even more motivation for young players to try and be good on and off the field. The stuff you were talking about, like the All-American game, as far as like the East Coast, where they weren't necessarily just looking at your performance,
Right.
but how you acted.
Right.
If pro scouts do that, like, what do you think college scouts look at?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just so good.
And what do you think your high school coach looks at?
Exactly. Like, it just
I'll take it even further. What do you think your grandparents look at
Right.
when they come to your games? What do you think your parents look at? What do you think your siblings look at?
Exactly.
I have a younger sibling. I know he looks up to me. He looks up to my older brother. He got his attitude from me. I got my attitude from Chris. Yeah. So it's all aligned. You have to be aware of the name on your chest. When we wear our jerseys that say Vanderbilt or they say Nolensville on them, we have to represent our town, where we came from, and even though our jerseys don't have our names on the back, but you still have to represent that too. You still have to represent your name, because you make a fool out of yourself on the field or in your regular life, you're gonna make your family look bad. It puts a bad rep on your family. Just be smart. Yeah. Be loving. Be caring. Be a good teammate. Be a good person. Mm-hmm. That's a goal that everybody should have. Mm-hmm. And it's sad that it has to be a goal, kind of, Right.
But but it's also good to look at just that's what you can control.
Yeah.
There's
yeah,
nothing
that's
else
what
to
you can
worry
control.
about.
Right.
There's nothing else to worry about but what you can control, because you can't do anything about the rest.
Exactly.
Of it. So why not?
Exactly.
Ethan, we've enjoyed it. We love having you on. You're a dog. I look forward to this season, bro. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Learn to Turn team really appreciates it. Mm-hmm. Loaded episode. Really, really good episode.
Huge episode.
So much stuff in it. Yeah. I learned more stuff about him than I have in the past 4 years today.
Yeah, and chances are Ethan will be on again, maybe twice.
Yeah.
If he's down. If he's down.
I would love to be on again. And, we can even go a little bit further in depth, talk about, what I did the past 2 summers, how I got that.
Yeah, we didn't even get to Ohio. That was one of the things we had written down. We didn't even get to that.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to come back.
We have plenty of stuff. We need to try and get you on with Coach Hudson or something.
Yeah, we should do a collab too.
Yeah, we definitely do. So
such a good episode today. You got anything you want to say?
Oh man, just like I said, have those small goals. Be smart. Be loving to your family. Make sure you go home and tell your parents you love them. Mm-hmm. They do a lot for you, so make sure you do that. Boys, it's been a great one.
I just want to say this real fast. Ethan, you'd probably think I was weird if I said this outside of the podcast. So I love you so much, bro. I'm super grateful for your friendship and all the good times we've had together and more to come. So thank you. Learn Turn. Episode 2.
The hand, but Learn to Turn.
Put up that LT. Anchor down. Okay. Thank you guys.
Yes, sir.
All right, Logan, have it again.
Woo! That was.
This might take like 2 hours to edit. No, more than that. Like
let me get up.
Oh, you're getting paid. Appreciate you.
No, like the camera turned off like twice because it can only record for like 30 minutes at a time.
Did it miss some?
A little bit.
Oh.
We have all the audio.
Yeah, I could just put a black screen and just say camera can only it auto stops.
Just
I have 5 clips on here, bro.
Wait, can you hurry and get in here though, so you don't have to edit more audio?
Let's see how many times.
Dude, I was thinking about the computer dying.
No, I'm straight.